At a family gathering, the mother-in-law presented gifts to all her grandchildren. "But there wasn't enough for my son," she scoffed. Her husband, who had previously dismissed his wife's subtle dislike for their son, did something entirely unexpected. "Before we continue, please tell us from which country you are watching this video. Enjoy listening." Marina watched her mother-in-law out of the corner of her eye, trying to remain unnoticed. Lyudmila Semyonovna sat in her favorite chair, upholstered in faded velvet, sipping tea while her gaze remained fixed on the television screen. The news was discussing politics, but Lyudmila Semyonovna seemed more engrossed by the pattern on her teacup, or perhaps by the fact that Kirill, her grandson, sat on the carpet, absorbed in assembling a building set, apparently undeserving of her attention. This was not a new occurrence. Marina had observed this detachment, a coolness bordering on utter indifference towards Kirill, for quite some time. Her treatment of Anya, the daughter of her elder daughter, was entirely different. Anya consistently received the most cherished presents, the warmest embraces, and the most extended conversations. And Kirill? Kirill was practically invisible. Marina sighed, perplexed by the situation. Kirill was as much her and Igor's beloved grandson as Anya was, yet Lyudmila Semyonovna seemed to perceive an invisible barrier that Kirill couldn't surmount. She glanced furtively at her husband. Igor was at the kitchen table, engrossed in his laptop, working. He always worked from dawn till dusk, ensuring they had a comfortable life. Marina understood and appreciated this, but sometimes she felt he was too preoccupied to notice what was happening around them. "Igor," she called softly. He looked up from his screen. "Yes, dear? Don't you notice how your mother treats Kirill?" Igor frowned. "What do you mean?" "She acts as if she doesn't see him, always giving Anya more attention. Always." "Mar, what are you getting into now? You're exaggerating. Mom treats everyone the same." "No, Igor, that's not true. I see it. And Kirill notices it too. He feels everything." Igor wearily rubbed his forehead. "Marina, please, don't start. I have a mountain of work. I don't want to get into this. You're just spiraling." Marina fell silent, realizing further argument would be futile. Igor always reacted this way, denying the issue, pretending nothing was amiss. It was easier for him to close his eyes than to admit his mother could be unfair. Anya's birthday was approaching, and Lyudmila Semyonovna was meticulously planning a grand celebration, inviting all relatives, friends, and acquaintances. Marina knew her mother-in-law would spare no effort for Anya. She never did. Marina felt a growing unease, dreading the day, fearing a repeat of past slights, and dreading seeing disappointment in Kirill's eyes, feeling unloved and unwanted once more. "Perhaps I should speak to your mother?" she asked Igor that evening after Kirill had fallen asleep. Igor shook his head. "Don't. You'll only make things worse. She'll get offended and everything will escalate. Just try to ignore it. It's just one day. One day that could leave a deep scar on a child's soul," Marina whispered, but Igor was no longer listening. His focus returned to his laptop and the world of numbers and charts. Marina lay awake for a long time, contemplating Kirill, Lyudmila Semyonovna, and Igor. She pondered how to shield her son from indifference and injustice, realizing she could no longer remain silent. She had to act for Kirill's sake, for her family's sake. The next day, Lyudmila Semyonovna called Marina, requesting help with the party preparations. Marina agreed, hoping for an opportunity to speak with her mother-in-law privately. Upon her arrival, Lyudmila Semyonovna was already bustling in the kitchen, preparing her signature pies, Anya's favorites. "Marinochka, thank you for coming," Lyudmila Semyonovna said, without looking at her. "I need your help decorating the cake." Marina silently took the cake and began decorating, avoiding her mother-in-law's gaze to mask her nervousness. "You know, Marinochka, I'm so glad Anya is such a bright and beautiful girl," Lyudmila Semyonovna suddenly remarked. "She's just like me." Marina remained silent. "And Kirill?" "Well, Kirill is a good boy, but a little different from Anya." Marina felt a surge of anger. "What do you mean by that, Lyudmila Semyonovna?" "Nothing in particular, just stating a fact." Do you think Kirill is inferior to Anya? I didn't say that. They're simply different. But you treat them differently. You love Anya more than Kirill. Lyudmila Semyonovna turned away from Marina and began washing dishes. That's not your concern. It is my concern, because Kirill is my son, and I won't allow you to treat him that way. You don't understand. Anya is a special girl. She deserves the very best. And Kirill doesn't deserve it? Marina asked, tears welling up. Lyudmila Semyonovna remained silent. Marina could no longer contain herself. You simply refuse to see him. You close your eyes to him. You don't love him. That's not true, Lyudmila Semyonovna exclaimed. Then why do you treat him like that? Why do you always favor Anya? Why do you never say a kind word to Kirill? Lyudmila Semyonovna lowered her head. I don't know. You need to change that. You need to love Kirill just as much as Anya. He deserves it. I'll try, Lyudmila Semyonovna whispered. Marina didn't believe her, knowing Lyudmila Semyonovna wouldn't change after living with her prejudices for so long. On Anya's birthday, Marina braced herself for the worst. She dressed Kirill in his favorite outfit to boost his confidence. She tried to smile and be welcoming to all the guests, but inwardly she was tense and wary. The party was in full swing. Lyudmila Semyonovna's house buzzing like a disturbed beehive. Children shrieked with delight, darting between the laden tables. Adults, relaxed by alcohol and easy conversation, seemed content. Anya, in her voluminous pink dress, was the center of attention, a little queen. Marina watched her from afar, a knot of anxiety tightening in her chest. Kirill stood aside, leaning against the wall, observing the general merriment. His eyes, usually sparkling with childish mischief, were now dull and sad. Marina attempted a smile, but he merely nodded slightly, as if avoiding notice. Her heart ached for her son. She longed to embrace him and reassure him, but she knew it wouldn't be enough. He needed more than mere words of comfort. He needed fairness. Finally, Lyudmila Semyonovna, beaming with pride, announced the most anticipated part of the evening, the gift-giving. The children froze in anticipation, while the adults reached for their phones to capture the touching moment. Anya was the first to approach her grandmother, who presented her with a large box tied with a golden ribbon. The girl shrieked with joy, tearing at the wrapping paper to reveal a doll she had long desired. Then, the other grandchildren came forward, each receiving a carefully chosen present. A new building set, a gaming console, fashionable clothes. Lyudmila Semyonovna generously distributed gifts, bestowing each child with a radiant smile and a fond word. Marina watched, her anger simmering. She saw Kirill standing apart, head bowed, trying not to witness the scene. She wanted to stop the charade, to cry out, but she held back, hoping Lyudmila Semyonovna would reconsider and rectify her mistake. Miraculously, it didn't happen. The last gift was given. The last child received their share of joy. Lyudmila Semyonovna scanned the crowd, seemingly ensuring no one was overlooked, and prepared to conclude the ceremony. "Grandma, what about my gift?" Kirill asked softly. Lyudmila Semyonovna froze for a moment, caught off guard. She looked at Kirill, standing in the corner, and a flicker of annoyance crossed her eyes. "For Kirill?" she repeated, deliberately loud enough for everyone to hear. "Kirill didn't get one. He has enough of everything. He's a spoiled boy. He gets whatever he wants." A heavy silence fell over the room. The children stopped their chatter. The adults stared, transfixed on Lyudmila Semyonovna. Even Anya, usually so boisterous and cheerful, fell silent, sensing something was amiss. Marina felt a blush creep up her cheeks, overwhelmed by shame, hurt, and sorrow for her son. She couldn't fathom Lyudmila Semyonovna uttering such words publicly, humiliating Kirill and portraying him in such an unfavorable light. She wanted to retort, to deliver a cutting remark, but no words came. Her throat tightened with indignation, and she simply stared at Lyudmila Semyonovna, disbelief etched on her face. Kirill did not cry. He showed no reaction to his grandmother's words. He simply lowered his head further and slowly walked into another room, as if seeking to escape the public gaze. He made no sound, shed no tear, merely departed as if he hadn't been there at all. This was the turning point. In that instant, Igor, who had been observing silently, grasped the full extent of the emotional trauma inflicted upon his son. He saw not just hurt, but a deep, festering wound caused by his own mother. He witnessed his son, a small, defenseless child, being humiliated and insulted by the person closest to him. All of Igor's doubts and hesitations vanished. He could no longer remain silent and blind to the situation. He could no longer permit his mother to cripple his son's life. He understood then that he had to protect Kirill at any cost. He stood up, taking a deep breath. All eyes were on him. Lyudmila Semyonovna looked at him with bewilderment, as if unaware of what was happening. Marina held her breath, wondering what he would say. "Mom," Igor began, his voice firm and resolute, "I've been silent and endured your treatment of Kirill for a long time. I hoped you would reconsider and change, but today you've crossed all boundaries. You've publicly humiliated my son. You've wounded him deeply. I cannot forgive this." Lyudmila Semyonovna attempted to object, but Igor raised his hand, stopping her. "No, Mom, hear me out," he continued. "You've always loved Anya more than Kirill. I don't know why, and I don't want to know, but I cannot allow you to treat my son like this. He is your grandson, just like Anya, and he deserves the same respect and love." Igor paused, catching his breath. A deathly silence filled the room. Everyone waited for his next words. "Therefore, I want to tell you, Mom," Igor continued, looking directly into Lyudmila Semyonovna's eyes, "that you are no longer part of our family if this is how you treat Kirill. You can love Anya as much as you wish, but you have no right to humiliate and insult my son. If you cannot understand this, then you have no place in our lives." Lyudmila Semyonovna turned as pale as a sheet. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound escaped her throat. She simply stared at Igor, unable to believe her ears. Igor lowered the microphone and turned to Marina and Kirill. "Let's go," he said softly. "We have nothing here." Marina nodded, took Kirill's hand, and followed Igor. They left Lyudmila Semyonovna's house, leaving behind the boisterous celebration and an offended mother. As they stepped outside, Kirill tightly squeezed his father's hand. He said nothing, but Igor felt his son's gratitude for his intervention. Marina looked at Igor with appreciation. She knew how difficult it had been for him to confront his mother. She knew how much he loved her, yet he had done it for Kirill, for their family, and she was immensely grateful. They walked down the street hand in hand, a small fortress protected from the outside world. They left behind a past filled with resentment and disappointment, walking towards a future brimming with hope and love. That evening, Igor and Marina hosted a small family celebration at home just for the three of them. They ordered pizza, put on Kirill's favorite music, and began to dance. After dinner, Igor retrieved a large box from the closet tied with a bright ribbon. "This is for you, Kirill," he said, handing the box to his son. "It's a gift from Dad and Mom." Kirill looked at the box skeptically, then at Igor and Marina. "But Grandma said I have enough of everything," he whispered. "That's not true," Igor replied, hugging his son. "But you have the most important thing, our love, and we want to give you as much of it as you desire." Kirill slowly took the box and began to unwrap it. Inside was a gaming console he had long dreamed of. Kirill's eyes lit up with delight. He hugged Igor and Marina, tears of happiness streaming down his face. "Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mom," he whispered. "I love you more than anything in the world." That evening, for the first time in a long time, Kirill felt loved and important. He realized he had a family that would always protect and support him. He realized he was not alone. The following days passed in strained silence. Lyudmila Semyonovna called several times, trying to speak with Igor. She cried, saying she had overreacted, that she hadn't meant to hurt Kirill, but Igor didn't answer her calls. He wasn't ready to talk. He needed time to process the events and figure out how to move forward. Marina took on the role of mediator. She listened to her mother-in-law's complaints, trying to explain the harm her indifference had caused Kirill. But Lyudmila Semyonovna seemed not to understand, insisting she loved all her grandchildren equally and only wanted Kirill to be more independent. One day, Marina couldn't hold back. "Love isn't shown in words, Lyudmila Semyonovna," she said. "It's in actions, isn't it? For years you've shown Kirill that he wasn't important to you, and now you're surprised he's withdrawn." Lyudmila Semyonovna fell silent after these words. It seemed she finally considered how her behavior might be perceived, but it was too late. A few days later, Igor decided to speak with his mother. He called her and asked her to visit. The conversation was difficult and lengthy. Lyudmila Semyonovna wept, begging for forgiveness. She professed her deep love for Igor and Kirill, stating she never intended to cause them pain. Igor listened in silence. He saw her genuine remorse, but also understood that repentance alone was insufficient. He needed confirmation that she had truly changed and would not repeat her mistakes. "Mom, I love you," he said at the end of their talk, "but I cannot allow you to treat Kirill this way. Until you learn to respect him, there can be no normal relationship between us. We need time to think everything through and decide how to move forward." Lyudmila Semyonovna agreed. She understood Igor was right. She needed time to change, to prove she deserved a place in their lives. Following this discussion, Igor and Marina decided to host their own celebration at home. They bought a large cake, decorated the apartment with balloons, and invited only Kirill's closest friends. Igor himself prepared dinner, striving to make the day the happiest in Kirill's life. When it was time for gifts, Kirill grew somewhat hesitant, fearing a repeat of the previous situation, that he would be left empty-handed. In the evening, after the guests had departed, Igor and Marina tucked Kirill into bed. They sat by his bedside for a long time, watching him sleep peacefully. "He's so happy," Marina whispered. "Yes," Igor replied. "He deserves to be happy." He embraced his wife, holding her close. He knew they faced many challenges ahead, but he also knew they would overcome them together, for they possessed the most important thing: each other's love and support. That night, Igor couldn't sleep for a long time. Lying in the darkness, he thought of his mother. He understood that severing ties with her was a painful and difficult step, but also necessary to protect his family. He recalled Marina's words about love being shown through actions. He resolved to always act in a way that made his son feel loved and valued. He would shield him from all adversity and support him in all his endeavors. He also decided to establish clear boundaries with his mother. He would maintain contact, but only if she respected his family and his decisions. He would no longer permit her to interfere in their lives or cause Kirill pain. With these decisions made, Igor felt a sense of relief. He knew things would be all right now. He had built his own family, and he would do everything in his power to ensure its happiness. A week later, Lyudmila Semyonovna called again, asking Igor to visit. Igor agreed, knowing a conversation was inevitable. When Igor arrived, Lyudmila Semyonovna met him at the door, looking tired and aged, tears in her eyes. "Forgive me, Igor," she said. "I was wrong. I understand I hurt Kirill. I promise it won't happen again." Igor looked at his mother, seeing her genuine remorse. He believed her. "I forgive you, Mom," he said. "But please don't forget that love and respect are paramount. If you remember this, everything will be fine." Lyudmila Semyonovna embraced Igor, feeling both guilt and happiness. She realized how fortunate she was to have such a son. From that day forward, the relationship between Igor and his mother began to mend. Lyudmila Semyonovna started visiting Kirill more frequently, playing with him, and giving him gifts, striving to compensate for years of coldness. Kirill gradually thawed, losing his fear of his grandmother and beginning to trust her. He realized she truly loved him, even if she didn't always know how to show it. Igor and Marina were happy, witnessing their family grow stronger and more united. They understood they had endured difficult trials, but these had only strengthened their love and devotion to each other.